After 30 years of dreaming about it, I finally did it. I installed solar panels on my home. You know that feeling when you've worked hard for something your whole life and it finally comes together? That was me, standing in my driveway watching my electric meter actually run backwards for the first time. After months of paperwork, inspections, and a significant investment that represented years of savings, my solar system was finally generating clean energy for my family. I thought I'd found paradise in this quiet neighborhood. The kids loved the big backyard. My wife enjoyed the community feel. That south-facing roof was absolutely perfect for solar. We'd done our research, talked to multiple contractors, and made what we thought was a smart long-term investment for our family's future. But you know how it is? There's always that one neighbor. Her name was Linda. She had opinions about everything. Your lawn wasn't quite right. Your car was parked wrong. Even the time you put your trash cans out was somehow her business. She wasn't officially part of the HOA, mind you, but she sure acted like she ran the whole street. The first sign of trouble came about a week after my panels went live. I was out front watering the flower beds my wife had planted when Linda approached. Now, I'm a friendly guy. I believe in being neighborly. So when she walked over, I smiled and prepared for some pleasant small talk. "Well, look at that," she said, staring up at my roof with this expression I couldn't quite read. "Solar panels, huh? It must be nice, getting all that free electricity." I chuckled, thinking she was just making conversation. Actually, it's not exactly free. Took quite an investment to get here. Oh. But yes, we're excited about reducing our electric bills and doing something good for the environment. She gave me this look. You know the one? The look that says someone's already made up their mind about you, and it's not good? She said. Well, I suppose some people have money to throw around. I should have seen the red flag right there, but I'm an optimist, you know? I figured she was just having a bad day. Boy, was I wrong. 3 days later, my 10-year-old son came running into the house, out of breath from riding his bike. Dad, there's a cord going into our backyard." Heart sank as I followed him outside. Sure enough, there it was, a bright orange extension cord snaking from Linda's garage, crossed our property line, and plugged directly into the outdoor outlet on my patio. I stood there for a moment, honestly not believing what I was seeing. I mean, who does that? Who just helps themselves to their neighbor's electricity? I unplugged the cord and walked over to Linda's house, trying to give her the benefit of the doubt. Maybe there was some explanation. Maybe she had an emergency. When she opened the door, she had this innocent expression on her face, like butter wouldn't melt in her mouth. "Oh, hi there, neighbor," she said cheerfully. "Beautiful day, isn't it?" "Oh." "Linda," I said, holding up the extension cord. This was plugged into my outlet. "Oh, that." She waved her hand dismissively. "I was just borrowing a little power." "Got all that solar now? I figured you wouldn't even notice. It's just for a few lights and my chest freezer." I felt my jaw drop. "Linda, this isn't how it works. The solar panels don't make electricity free. I still pay for the system, the maintenance, the loan, everything." Her friendly demeanor vanished instantly. "Come on," she said, her voice turning sharp. "You've got more power than you could ever use. Don't be so selfish about it. I'm just one little old lady trying to save a few dollars on her electric bill." And before I could respond, she closed the door. Right in my face. I walked back to my house feeling stunned. In all my years, I'd never encountered anything quite like this. I thought maybe embarrassing her would be enough to stop. I was so wrong, because the very next morning that orange cord was back. Only this time she'd wrapped duct tape around the plug to keep me from unplugging it easily. That's when I realized I wasn't dealing with a simple misunderstanding. This was going to be a war. I wish I could tell you that Linda came to her senses after our first conversation. But if you've ever dealt with a neighbor like this, you know that's not how these stories go. After I discovered the duct-taped plug, I did what any reasonable person would do. I turned off the power to that outlet. Problem solved, right? Wrong. 2 days later, I woke up to find my side gate standing wide open. My wife noticed it first. She always checks the locks before bed, so she knew something was off. We walked around back together, and there it was. Linda had somehow gotten into our fenced backyard and plugged her cord into a different outlet. My wife looked at me with this expression of disbelief. She was in our yard? While we were sleeping? That hit me hard. This wasn't just about electricity anymore. This was about our family's safety and privacy. We have grandchildren who play in that backyard. The thought of someone sneaking around back there while we slept. It made my blood run cold. I marched straight over to Linda's house. This time, I wasn't looking for a friendly conversation. Linda, you were in my yard last night. That's trespassing. She looked me right in the eye and shrugged. I needed to move my cord. You shut off my power. Your power. I felt my voice rising, and I had to take a breath to calm down. Linda, that's my electricity. I paid $30,000 for those panels. This has to stop. $30,000? She laughed. Actually laughed. Oh, please. Everyone knows the government pays for those things. You're probably making money off of them. The least you could do is share a little with your neighbors who are struggling. I stared at her, genuinely speechless. Where do you even begin with? Logic like that? Linda, the government doesn't pay for solar panels? I took out a loan. I'll be paying for this system for the next 15 years. That's not what I heard, she said smugly. And even if that were true, you're still generating way more power than you need. It's greedy to hoard it all, when good people are suffering with these high electric bills. She shut the door again, leaving me standing on her porch, frustrated. And honestly, a little scared about where this was heading. But Linda wasn't done. Oh no, she was just getting started. Over the next week, I started noticing changes in how my neighbors looked at me. People who used to wave and chat suddenly seemed ... distant. At the mailbox, conversations would stop when I approached. Finally, my neighbor Dan pulled me aside. Dan's a good guy, retired teacher, level-headed, the kind of person who doesn't get involved in drama. Hey, I thought you should know, he said quietly. Linda's been telling people some pretty wild stories about your solar setup. She's saying you get free power from the government and you're supposed to share it with the neighborhood. She's got some folks actually believe in it. My heart sank. What kind of stories? Well, she told Mrs. Peterson that solar owners are required by law to provide power to neighbors who need it. She told the Johnsons that you're getting paid by the electric company and keeping all the profits for yourself. And yesterday she was telling anyone who would listen that you're cheating the system somehow. I felt sick. Here I was trying to be a responsible homeowner and do something good for the environment. And now I was being painted as some kind of villain. That weekend, things got even worse. I looked out my window and saw not one, but 2 extension cords running across my lawn. Linda had apparently convinced her friend across the street to join in. That's when I knew I had to take action. Real action. I called my friend Kevin, who's an electrician, and explained what was happening. He listened quietly, and then he started laughing. You know what he said? I think it's time to teach Linda and her friends a little lesson about electricity. Are you ready to have some fun with this? For the first time in weeks, I smiled. Kevin, I'm ready to end this once and for all. Kevin came over the next evening with his toolbox and a mischievous grin that reminded me why we'd been friends for 20 years. Right, he said, here's what we're going to do. We're going to give Linda exactly what she thinks she wants. Access to your free solar power, but it's going to come with a little surprise. Kevin explained his plan. We'd install a dummy outlet that looked identical to my real ones. But instead of providing electricity, it would trigger a loud security alarm the moment someone plugged into it. We'd also set up some discreet security, cameras to document everything. The beauty of this, Kevin explained as we worked, is that it's completely legal. It's your property, your outlet, and your right to protect your home from theft. We spent 2 evenings getting everything ready. Fake outlet looked perfect. You couldn't tell the difference unless you knew what to look for. I also installed motion-activated cameras with night vision, hidden under my eaves where they couldn't be seen from the ground. My wife was initially worried about escalating things, but when I showed her the footage of Linda creeping around our backyard at night, she understood this had gone too far. I just want our home to feel safe again, she said. I want to be able to let the grandkids play outside without worrying about who might be lurking around back there. We didn't have to wait long. 3 nights later, around 10:30 p.m., the motion sensors picked up movement in our backyard. I watched from our bedroom window as Linda emerged from the shadows, extension cord in hand, looking around like a burglar casing the joint. She crept over to the dummy outlet, glanced around one more time, and plugged in her cord. Woo whoop. Woo whoop. Woo. The alarm was so loud it woke up half the neighborhood. Dogs started barking. Porch lights flicked on up and down the street. Linda jumped about 3 feet in the air, let out a shriek that probably woke the other half of the neighborhood, and ran for her house like her pants were on fire, leaving her extension cord dangling from the outlet. I stepped onto my front porch in my bathrobe, pretending to be startled awake by the noise. Sorry, everyone. I called out to the gathering crowd of neighbors. Looks like someone tried to tamper with my electrical system again. Everything's secure now. The timing couldn't have been more perfect. There were at least a dozen witnesses, and Linda's house was the only one with no lights on, because she was hiding inside, probably dying of embarrassment. Dan walked over, shaking his head with a wry smile. Well, I guess we know who's been causing all this trouble, he said loud enough for others to hear. For the first time in weeks, I saw my neighbors looking at me with sympathy instead of suspicion. The truth was finally starting to come out. But the real victory came the next day, when I compiled all the security footage into a short video. It clearly showed Linda trespassing on my property multiple times, stealing electricity, and then getting caught red-handed by the alarm. I shared it in our neighborhood group chat with a simple message, since there's been some confusion about what's been happening with my solar setup. I thought everyone should see the facts. The response was immediate and overwhelming. I can't believe she was actually stealing your electricity. She had the nerve to tell us you were the problem. This is unbelievable and illegal. We owe you an apology for believing her stories. Linda went completely silent in the group chat. For someone who usually had an opinion about everything, her sudden silence spoke volumes. But I wasn't done yet. The alarm had been satisfying, and clearing my name felt great. But Linda still owed me for all the electricity she'd stolen, and I had a plan to make sure she paid every penny, because sometimes it's the only way to stop a bully is to hit them where it really hurts, right in the wallet. Kevin helped me set up one final trap, a modified outlet that looked completely normal, but secretly recorded exactly how much electricity was being used. We placed it where Linda would be sure to discover it, then waited. Sure enough, within 48 hours, she was back to her old tricks. But this time, I let her. For a full week, I documented every single instance of theft, while the meter quietly tracked every kilowatt hour she stole. The final tally was staggering: $247 worth of electricity. In just 7 days, she'd been running a space heater, charging her electric scooter, and even powering some kind of workshop equipment in her garage. When I finally had all the evidence I needed, I printed everything out: the security footage, the meter readings, photographs, timestamps, everything organized in a neat folder. Then I walked over to Linda's house and knocked on her door. She opened it looking haggard and defeated. The whole neighborhood now knew what she'd been doing, and the shame was clearly eating at her. "We need to talk," I said simply, holding up the folder. She didn't argue this time. She let me in and sat down heavily at her kitchen table while I spread out all the evidence. "And," I said, keeping my voice calm and matter-of-fact, "this folder contains proof that you've stolen nearly $250 worth of electricity in just the past week. Multiply that over the months you've been doing this, and we're talking about thousands of dollars." Her face went pale as she looked at the meter readings and photographs. "Now," I continued, "I could take all of this to the police. Theft is theft, regardless of the amount. Or," I slid a handwritten invoice across the table, "you can pay me back for what you've stolen, plus the cost of the equipment I had to install to protect my property. Total $467. She stared at the number, her mouth opening and closing like a fish out of water. "This is extortion," she finally whispered. I shook my head. "No, Linda. Extortion would be demanding more than what you owe. This is just asking. For what you've stolen, plus my costs to stop you from stealing it, you have two choices: Pay me back or explain to the police why you thought my electricity was yours to take." She sat there for a long moment, staring at the evidence spread across her table. All her bluster, all her justifications about free government power and sharing with neighbors, none of it mattered when faced with cold, hard facts. Finally, she got up and retrieved her checkbook with shaking hands. She wrote out the check without saying another word and slid it across. "To me, thank you," I said, tucking the check into my folder. "And Linda, if I ever catch you on my property again, or plugging into my outlets, I'll file a police report immediately. No more second chances." She nodded silently, unable to meet my eyes. The change in our neighborhood was immediate and lasting. Linda stopped her gossiping, stopped trying to boss people around, and definitely stopped stealing my electricity. When neighbors saw her now, they weren't looking to her for the latest drama. They were probably wondering what other rules she'd been breaking. As for me, my solar panels continue to hum quietly away, saving my family money every month and reducing our environmental footprint. The investment was worth every penny, not just for the clean energy, but for the peace of mind. The whole experience taught me something important. Sometimes standing up to a bully requires patience, evidence, and strategy. You can't fight unreasonable people with just reason. Sometimes you need to let their own actions speak for themselves. And every time I look at those panels gleaming in the sun, generating clean power for my family, I'm reminded that good things come to those who work hard, plan ahead, and don't let anyone take advantage of their success. Linda learned that lesson the hard way, and our neighborhood is better for it.